race only the world's very best dream of even finishing. Since 1892, the riders have received the challenge, and the millions of fans have thrown down the deafening gauntlet to force out the winner of the Tour de France. The cyclists attack it with a vengeance, for it's La Tour that has immortalized farmers' sons and turned athletes into legends. The reward for a date with the Tour de France is pain, exhaustion, and sometimes broken bones. This test of will they call a bike race would make the Marquis de Sade proud to be a Frenchman. If the Tour de France is the ultimate athletic challenge, then it's also a magnificent serpent of colors, coursing through the hundreds of tiny French towns, and then joining them with the common bond that has and always will draw millions of fans from their homes. The pictures tell it all quite simply. This is not just another sporting event. And it's an event that finds American Greg LeMond, one of the favorites to win this race. The 24-year-old from Washoe County, Nevada, rewrote sports history, finishing third last year, and now rides on a French team that includes the legendary Badger, Bernard Hinault. Hinault has conquered the race 4 times, but was denied a 5th last year by another Frenchman, this man, Laurent Fignon. But Fignon is out this year to an injury, and so for teammates LeMond and Hinault, the battle for a win will be against one another. And who could have designed a more magnificent stadium in which to stage it all? Every day, a different race. And every day, over all types of terrain. Each July, all of France stops to watch the Tour. The cyclists spend their time at work on the bikes. Lunch and dinner on 2 wheels, snatching a chicken leg in a sack at 40 miles an hour becomes a practiced art. So does adjusting your clothing, or visiting the pharmacy for a case of stomach cramps. From the bodies to the bikes, it's constant attention for these men who would dare to ride in the Super Bowl of cycling. I'm John Tesh, and welcome to the 1985 Tour de France bicycle race. For the next 4 weeks here on CBS Sports Sunday, we'll be bringing you our unique coverage of this, the most prestigious bicycle race in the world. But you know, you really can't call the Tour de France a bicycle race because it's 23 individual races which combine to make up this 2,567-mile odyssey. Who wins the whole thing? Well, he's the man who completes the entire course and the fastest overall elapsed time. Now, working with me will be 5-time Olympic gold medalist Eric Heiden, and also a veteran of 13 Tours de France as a commentator, Phil Liggett. And Phil, we have a chance to see perhaps an American winner here in Greg LeMond.
Absolutely, John, and really for the first time, Greg LeMond, having finished third last year, is now ready to win the Tour de France and add a little bit more history to this great sporting event. Of course, his main adversary is not Laurent Fignon this year, because Fignon is out with an injury, but his own teammate Bernard Hinault, well, he's the man that LeMond may well have to beat to get that final yellow jersey when the race ends in Paris.
Well, this Friday, day 1 of the Tour, with 2,567 miles to go, and the first race, the prologue time trial in Premierlec, just off Brittany's South Atlantic coast. The local government in Brittany paid an estimated $400,000 to have the Tour pass through here, so you got to sell those tickets. And what would the Tour de France be without some French bread and a little tasty pastry? Some of these folks have been waiting in this town since dawn just to get a look at their favorites. And the king of them all? Well, he's the hometown Breton himself, Bernard Hinault, the 30-year-old son of a railway worker who won last year's prologue. His specialty is this solo sprint against the watch. American Greg LeMond, like Hinault, wears an aerodynamically shaped helmet. The French call this race contre la montre, against the watch. And a man who knows it well is my colleague, U.S. pro cycling champion Eric Heiden.
The important thing to remember about a time trial is that it's you all by yourself against the clock. The race behind me is about 4 miles and it'll take only about 9 minutes, but you're going as hard as you can, so you just ache, and you can tell yourself 1,000 times you want to quit. But that's what the Tour de France is all about, somehow getting through that pain barrier day after day.
One man about to experience this unique brand of agony is Doug Shapiro, only the third American to ever ride in the Tour. The 25-year-old New York native was a last-minute replacement for an injured teammate and has now suddenly found himself in a race of his life. In a time trial, every second is precious, and to do well requires absolute concentration and sheer determination. Let me tell you from personal experience that it's a lonely race where you must really dig down deep to do well. This is the first of 5 time trials in the Tour, and though they're relatively short, only the strongest riders will finish on top. Look at any rider, and it's easy to see why the time trial means pushing yourself beyond what you might think is possible.
Oh, putain.
Still to ride, back down near the start, waits Greg LeMond. And is this the face of a man about to meet the watch? And will his jersey soon turn to yellow? We'll be back.
This is CBS.
Monday on Alice.
I think dunking is disgusting. What an awful thing to do to a dear little donut. Makes them all gushy.
Well, that donut's 3 days old. Mel's doing it a favor to put it out of its misery.
Well, at least now we know. This is where old donuts go to die.
Don't miss Alice, Monday afternoon at 4 on Channel 7.
Introducing a Coors like you never knew before. New Coors Extra Gold.
This ain't no uptown, watered-down beer that needs an apology. This is Coors Extra Gold. It's the beer with the taste you can see.
And only Coors can make it so easy drinking.
Yeah, this is bolder, golder, broad-shouldered beer the way beer ought to be. This is Coors Extra Gold. It's the beer with the taste you can see.
Join Dave Cody for sports weeknights at 6 and 10.
$4,000 solid wheels to pointy plastic helmets. No effort has been spared to try and shave seconds off the clock at the time trial. This is the new wave of racing bikes at the Tour de France. Track racers have used them for years. And although they're not durable enough to survive the mountains, they will help you beat the clock. American Greg LeMond in the start house, ready to pedal the first strokes in a Tour which he is favored to win. The race is barely 4 miles, but LeMond knows that in the all-out war against the watch, there is only pain. For LeMond, the challenge is not only to try and win the Tour, but to be the first American ever to wear the yellow jersey.
But ahead of LeMond, Eric van der Orden is something of a specialist in what the Belgians call these races of truth. And this Belgian, well known for his kamikaze tendencies, is out to spoil LeMond's hopes of victory.
LeMond's tempo becomes that of a madman, alone with his bike and an internal clock. The American is tugged along by the thousands of French cycling fanatics who've adopted this 24-year-old as one of their own cycling superheroes.
When you can't see your adversary, then you have to go as fast as you can. And van der Orden, who's no hill specialist, is driven on at the thought of LeMond chasing behind. Pretty good. The best time so far.
But cued in the start house is a man whose ears will soon be ringing with the chants of the name that has become synonymous with cycling excellence. Bernard Hinault is off the starting line. And the crush to record the ride of a legend becomes panicked and dangerous.
In French, French, Le Monde means the world, and the whole planet seems to be around today to watch Greg, who may be American, but the French still appreciate a champion, especially one who rides in a French team.
But back behind, parts the crest of a screaming wave of those who have watched him demolish the best in the world. France's Badger gnaws away at a ticking clock that has always been his ally. Le Monde draws the cheers from the crowd who know he has an appointment with the history books as he tries to become the first American to ride into the yellow jersey. The race against the watch, and there is no time for even one mistake.
In time trialling, support is always at hand, but at a distance. And it's no help to Le Monde here as he slips his chain. This is why the time trial is called the race of truth. There's no room for error, and there's no one to hide behind. The legs under effort 1 minute are now screaming with pain as Le Monde tries to correct his error. Remember, up front, Van der Orden is smiling with a great time. Behind, Eno is coming up fast. Le Monde has no time to think or even call for help because the watches continue to tick. And now he must work hard to rectify a mistake. Le Monde tries to recoup his lost time. For a few seconds lost now may haunt him later.
Back on the course, and the loudspeakers have told the crowd that Hinault's pace may well win him that golden fleece because Le Monde's mistake was costly.
Oh, it's hard. I put my chain into my wheel with the last half kilometer to go. I must have lost 5 seconds at least there. But it's just a prologue. It's 3 weeks ago.
And so the final 100 meters for the man from Brittany playing here at home. And Bernard Hinault proves that at 30 years old, he still has the strength to best a field 180 strong. The exhausted yet triumphant Frenchman has done it once again. So the standings after the time trial, and the stage is set for this most amazing bike race based on overall elapsed time. Marked in yellow on day one, well, to many it came as no surprise, really. A fitting color for this great champion. But to the French, Hinault represents not only sporting excellence. You see, Bernard Hinault has also won the hearts of France with his comeback story. It was 2 years ago when the man who had 4 times conquered the Tour was knocked out of competition with tendinitis. So why not retire a millionaire? Well, that would not do for this superhero who had grown accustomed to the taste of success. So last year, the Badger attempted a gallant comeback, but the comeback fell short, and the constant crush of the press to record it all exposed the Badger with his teeth bared. One year later, here in '85, and a more confident Hinault, now the first in yellow. He rides in what can only be called a dream team. It was Hinault himself who took Greg LeMond under his wing, hired him on his team, and now LeMond, the former world champion, joins the Frenchman, and the two have become a most auspicious tandem. But how much team spirit will the two share when the finish line begins to grow closer? And who's working for whom? We'll be back.
This is CBS.
Nobody makes a lettuce and tomato hamburger like McDonald's new McDLT.
Hot quarter-pounder beef on the hot side.
Keeps the hot, hot.
Keeps the hot, hot.
Crisp lettuce and tomato on the cool side.
Keeps the cool.
Keeps the cool.
The beef stays hot, the cool stays crisp. It's the hottest taste, the coolest dish.
Could be the best lettuce and tomato hamburger ever.
It's a good time.
Hot beef and McD.
Has a great taste. Cool crisp LT.
New McD. LT.
Bernard Hinault reading about cover boy Bernard Hinault in L'Equipe, France's #1 sports magazine. And he's had occasion to do that a lot in his long career riding a bicycle. Now, after Friday's first day of racing, Hinault wears the yellow leader's jersey. Just 21 seconds behind Hinault is his teammate, American Greg LeMond, making some last-minute preparations. It's time for the second day of racing and the longest single-day race of this year's Tour de France. 179 riders begin the 160-mile trek, mostly through the intimate back roads of Brittany. It's really a race through Bernard Hinault's backyard. The Tour de France, an event, the scope of which can only be realized after a look at the arena. France. This year's tour makes its start just outside Vannes, 18 miles from the open sea. It was in the 6th century Celtic tribes fleeing the Vikings in Great Britain migrated here. They called themselves Bretons and called this area where the cyclists will spend 4 days, Brittany. As the riders travel along France's north coast to Vitré, the racing is expected to be rather tame on the flat, picturesque roads. Now, the Tour is now just north of the finish line in Paris, but the riders have just begun to feel the wrath of the Tour because ahead are the cobblestone roads near the industrial town of Roubaix. Those 25 miles of cobbles figure to be a factor early on in the Tour's outcome. This bike race skirts the borders of 4 countries on the way to the foothills of the Alps. It's time now for the racing to get serious, and the riders will climb as much as 10,000 feet in one day in the Alps. These alpine stages will begin to separate the climbers from the pretenders to the Tour de France crown. What follows the Alps is no respite, but only more severe climbing. The organizers, the racers, and those who follow the Tour de France know that the Pyrenees Mountains will force more cyclists to drop out and begin immediately to tell the story of who will have a chance to win it all. Those who lead out of the mountain stages are pointed towards the vineyards in the wine country of Bordeaux. And given the quality of racers this year, it may well be here where the last-ditch battle is waged to find the champion who will finally ride into Paris along the Champs-Élysées for the finish of the Tour de France. The 1985 Tour de France will take the riders 2,567 miles, 23 days.
But not everybody enjoys the Tour de France, and Denis Roux, he stops here with a back wheel flat. He knows now the day ahead is a hard one, because the pack wait for no one, and the record field of 180 riders cram the French roads, and the man in yellow has to take a little trip up and down the bunch to see exactly where the favourites are. Tour de France is a matter of team tactics. The big teams take on each other, and Bernard Hinault's La Vie Claire team include this year Greg LeMond. And LeMond, taking a drink now, knows the racing this day is still ahead. On his back, a musette carrying sandwiches for the trip. And the team to beat is at the front of the race. Phil Anderson of the Panasonic Rally team rides close to his teammate Eric van der Arden in the green points jersey. If the Panasonic tactics work out, then they could have their man in yellow tonight. At the back of the race, Bernard Hinault drops back to his manager for some advice how to handle the tactics of the Panasonic Rally. He's very concerned by the fact they're all at the front, setting the pace so high it's hard to follow. Greg LeMond tries to interrupt, break up the rhythm, and try and bring his team back in the race. And Steve Bauer is proving to be a valuable new teammate to LeMond because he's bringing back his man Bernard Hinault now, back up to the Panasonic team to prove that this is all a race of tactics today. Anderson, unperturbed, works well at the front with the Panasonic riders, knowing that they can get their man Eric van der Arden to the finish. He's a great sprinter, the victory could be his. No effort is spared by the rally riders, and at the finish, it's all for everybody as Rudy Matisse surprises to take first place. But watch the man in second, because he's the green jersey of van der Arden, and second is good enough to make that jersey yellow.
And that's the important thing in this most prestigious bike race. It's all based on time. After 2 days, Eric van der Arden has the best overall elapsed time. Earlier today, this 30th of June, it was the race from Lorient, France to Vitré. And the story was most everyone trying to get away because entering the race, Belgium's Eric van der Arden here had a 32-second lead over the rest of the pack. Greg LeMond working to engineer a breakaway using his teammates as a windbreak. But no escape for LeMond, the American. And Irishman Sean Kelly, too, the Tour's best sprinter, wearing a red jersey to show so. For everyone today, including four-time winner Bernard Hinault, it was nothing but frustration because all the breakaways ended up being absorbed by the pack. And everyone finished en masse, which means that even though Rudy Matties would cross the finish line first, the Belgian Eric van der Arden was close enough to the rest of the pack to retain his yellow leader's jersey. So after 3 days of racing of 23, a look now at the standings as we watch Van der Arden on the winner's stand. Greg LeMond still in the thick of it. For Eric Heiden and Phil Liggett, I'm John Tesh saying so long for now from France.
All right, John, thank you. Our tour coverage will continue next week as they head into the mountains. But right now, they're getting ready to fight in Las Vegas. Jimmy Paul and Robin Blake. They're battling for the IBF World Lightweight Championship. Tim Ryan, Gil Clancy, and Sugar Ray Leonard will call the action from ringside after this.